and maybe some of the non-medico response to it. And there maybe we'll start thinking that I'm sure some of the companies in Silicon Valley, some of the other companies globally might already be, and institutions and organizations may already be working on it, that for us to get back to normalcy, we'll have to think from various perspectives. And over a period of time, maybe some protective gear will come, maybe something with better sanitation and some of the better controls. Organizations will say, people will say that if I'm sure that there is a 90-95% probability of me not getting impacted, then I'll come back. And beyond the cure, I mean, maybe it'll move towards more and more of what we can do on the preventive side till the time we really develop a vaccine or something like that. And I feel hopeful about it. Think about it. I just give you a data point. I have read this and I hope it is correct that the number of people who die, let's say on a weekly basis in US have actually come down, despite the fact that large number of people have died because of coronavirus, because the road accidents are not happening, the violence and some of the murder, etc., that used to happen, they are not happening. And maybe at some point in time, people will think that, I mean, you have a risk in road travel, but still, I mean, you put some controls towards it. There is a risk in air travel. Over a period of time, we have found a way to deal with it. There is a risk in various other things in life, but we have found a way out of it. Maybe I'm sure over a period of time, people will find a way out of it. And I remain very optimistic. Having said that, I remain very optimistic that the pace at which the work is happening on vaccines, human trials have started, you would have read in a couple of countries. And I think the pace at which the work is happening, I feel positive about it. India seems to be doing relatively better, as I mentioned earlier, and I think that can really differentiate us. These are early days. I mean, touch wood, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have to wait and watch over the next few weeks, over the next few months as the normalcy starts in terms of opening of the lockdown. We have already seen the country getting bifurcated into the red zone, orange and green. We'll have to wait and watch how situation evolves over a period of time. But so far it looks like India has dealt with it relatively better than most of our peers. And globally, I mean, if you look at several experts have been very, very cautious about India, given the sheer size and the complexity of the country, that what happens if there is a community spread in India. But I think so far we have done reasonably good job. And whether it's the administration between the central, state and the local bodies, whether in terms of the work done by the organizations, work done by NGOs, I think we have really shown our capacity as a country of dealing with crisis. In fact, I've always maintained this, and I've said it before, that somehow the best of us as Indians always come out when there is a big crisis. The way we deal with every natural calamity is, I think, is far better than several of the other countries without really spending the kind of money that several of the other countries spend. So I'm sure there would be a lot of lessons and a lot of interesting things that will come out, the way administration and the whole country and the communities is dealing with it. I'm digressing a bit before I come to the economy on that point on the community, that I strongly believe, in fact, Rajan has written a book about it, that over a period of time between states and markets, where we think that markets have solution for every single thing, the state, I mean, governments have a large role to play, but over a period of time, communities have a very, very large role to play. And this is the time when we have really seen how communities are going to play a very, very big role in the functioning of the world. Coming to the economy, because there is a big demand shock, there is a big supply shock, and I'll take 2 more minutes on that. There is a big oil shock which has impacted the world in a manner which nobody could imagine a month or 2 months back. In fact, around 2 months back, the volatility across financial markets was at a multi-decade low. That means markets were not prepared for it. And that, I mean, you may call it a complacency in the financial markets, but maybe people were I would say, reliant on the ability of global central banks to deal with any crisis in any part of the world. And we have seen this in the last 10, 11 years. Anywhere there is any economic crisis, any credit market crisis, a banking crisis, or any crisis, even a geopolitical crisis, central banks will come and print money and things will come back to normalcy. But this time, the magnitude of the crisis was very, very different. So obviously, again, central banks reacted in a very, very aggressive manner. The kind of money printing which has happened in last 2 months is absolutely unprecedented. It's much bigger than what US Federal Reserve or some of the other central banks did post global financial crisis in 2008. And of course, they had to do whatever they have done to stabilize financial markets, to stabilize financial systems, to stabilize the economies globally. Even the fiscal response has been very, very strong. And a large number of countries in the world have come out with fiscal stimulus, which again is absolutely unprecedented. I'm sure everybody has heard about 10% of GDP in US. In fact, they are talking about a lot more going forward. Japan has done like 20% of GDP, and almost every other country has done a large amount of fiscal stimulus. In fact, just taking a step back, our view has been, even before this crisis, that 2020 would be that tipping point where central banks would tell governments everywhere in the world that carrying forward the mantle of supporting growth has to be taken by the governments. We have done whatever we could do post global financial crisis, and now you have to take the mantle. As it is, I was expecting that to happen in 2020, but again, because of this crisis, central banks again had to print so much of money, had to cut interest rates, had to do all that they could do in their toolbox. But I have a strong view that going forward, the governments and the fiscal policy will play a much, much bigger role. And I'm talking of rest of the world. I'll come to India in 2-3 minutes time. What they will do, so my sense is immediately dealing with this health crisis. Second, supporting all the businesses, individuals, those segments which will get badly impacted by this crisis. If you look at the number of people who have lost jobs in US in last 1 month, is more than the jobs that they've created in last 11 years. So I mean, there are like 20 million people who have lost, close to that number have lost their jobs. So obviously you have to give hard cash to people. You have to guarantee the debt of a lot of businesses which won't be able to pay their EMIs. You have to support several businesses who won't have any revenue for some time but will have the cost structure. And then you have to support the growth. So they will be doing that. That's number 2. The number 3 thing, which I feel very confident about even before this crisis, is to get the growth back. Ultimately, governments in the world will say, we are going to invest a lot of money in physical infrastructure, because that's the only way we will be able to get growth back, because corporate sector will not have that much of confidence. Individuals would not have, investors may not have that much of confidence. So to get the growth back, and this will be very good for the world, because we'll be creating new physical infrastructure, we'll be creating new social infrastructure like healthcare, education, we'll be creating new digital infrastructure after the lending from this crisis, and governments will spend huge money on that. The cost of borrowing is low for almost every government in the world, and this will be good for the world, I think, in the longer run, because this will make growth more sustainable, more equitable. This will create more jobs. Also, I keep saying that how every crisis, there is something interesting that comes. So like after the 1930s recession, where like 1/4 of US population was like on the brink of poverty, the FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, started something called the New Deal, and a big wave of social security started, and a couple of other very interesting government programs. Similarly, I think globally, in some or the other form, a universal basic income has got launched in some or the other manner everywhere. Coming to India, India's situation is slightly different than some of the other countries. At our end, the monetary policy had a lot more space than the fiscal space. So between last year and this year, we were already, the fiscal deficit was already slightly higher than the FRBM limit. So government was supposed to have a fiscal deficit of 3.8%, this year 3.3%. But with this crisis, it is likely to go up substantially, even with or without the government spending a lot more money. But thankfully, we had a lot of space on the monetary side, which RBI has done very effectively. Everybody knows, we have released a lot of notes. I'm sure you would have had call with fixed income fund managers. I wouldn't go into what RBI has done. People are very well aware the way they have tried to bring rates down. I'll only mention one thing about RBI, and I want to praise them. You know, in central banking, I always say this, that open mouth operations. So all bond traders like us, we know about OMO as open market operations when they go and buy and sell securities. And I always say open mouth operations, that's the other side of, other kind of OMO is as important, if not more important, than the open market operation, the other OMO. In central banking, what you say is important, but how you say is a lot more important. And I give you one example. In 2012-13, when there was a crisis in Europe, and you would remember that PIGS countries, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain, and there was a big sovereign crisis. In India, markets were falling. Every day you would remember in afternoon, our markets will gyrate depending on what's happening in Europe. What Mario Draghi, the ECB head, the European Central Bank head, said was, we will do whatever it takes. And those three words, whatever it takes, did more than the hundreds of billions of dollars that ECB would have printed. Of course, it has to be supported by real money. But I think the way RBI mentioned whatever it takes in both the press meets, the way he mentioned about to begin with. So there were like a couple of programs that got announced, and I don't want to get into the technicality of all of that, like 50,000 crores in the second round last week, 50,000 crores TLTRO for NBFCs, 50,000 crores for NHB, NABARD, and SIDBI and all that. After mentioning that amount, he said to begin with, that if this 50,000 crore get exhausted, doesn't mean that this is what we have done. We will stand ready to do whatever we can. So I think RBI has done that in a very, very encouraging manner, and I really applaud that. Having said that, apart from cutting rates, apart from releasing liquidity, they may have to do a lot more to ensure that money reaches where it is really needed. Because whatever RBI has done, that large part of money is still only available for the top rung corporates. There is shortage of money at various businesses today. So they may have to do a lot more. They've done the moratorium, they've relaxed the norms for moratorium. The third thing they had to do, which we asked last month, was a restructuring. Now this is completely against what we have been trying to do, a big reform in the form of IBC, in the form of NCLT and AQR and all of that. But given the situation where there is going to be a P&L recession in India, like rest of the world, a large number of businesses have their cost structure and will not have the revenue for some time, a lot of balance sheets will get damaged permanently. So you have to restructure. RBI made a beginning with allowing some bit of restructuring for some of the real estate players, maybe for some of the other industries that may have to be announced. Now coming to the government side, the first part of the stimulus was more like a social stimulus, very much required, that should have been where the first rupee gets spent by the government, and they've done it very, very extremely well, I would say, in terms of distributing the food and whatever. But I think a lot more need to be done. And I remain hopeful. Markets have been hopeful that I'm sure a lot more of fiscal stimulus is likely to come in some or the other form. It could be monetary, as well as identifying ways of a multiplier effect, that you spend 100 rupees, but there is a big multiplier effect of spending that 100 rupees on the economy. And it's a time to think boldly. And one of the good things we have is, like, we have a huge FX reserves. Can we buy crude oil when it's available at like such low prices? By the way, I mean that you cannot buy oil at a negative price, which got quoted day before. That's more in the futures market. But even if you buy at $15, $20, $25 is good for the country. Can we use our FX reserve? Can we spend a lot more money on NRE-GA, where we not only create jobs, we give the money to a person immediately, he will spend or she will spend, and also we use some material and ensure that we create assets at this point in time. You go back in history after the wars and all, this is what the governments do, create new assets by giving jobs to people. So you create an asset that makes growth productive, and you also create jobs immediately so that the consumption continues. Maybe in the later part of our Q&A, I can discuss about several measures that can be thought about, what government can do between central, state, and the local governments. This is a time to be bold. This is a time to be creative. This is a time to think out of the box, because unusual situation demands unusual response. Now I'll come to that one part which I mentioned earlier on the oil shock. So there are three big shocks that the global economy is going through. A demand shock, because people won't consume even if they want to. Also because of the negative income, negative wealth effect, they will feel less inclined towards spending. There's going to be a supply shock. Plants are closed. Even if they open, supplier may not be there, working capital may not be there, consumer may not be there, transporter may not be there, variety of issues. The third is the oil shock. While India is a very big beneficiary of this on the oil price. You would have heard it from every single expert in the world. And I have also been saying the same. But we must keep in mind, and this is my view, that a stabilization of oil and all commodities is important for stabilization of global financial markets. Oil has several dimensions. It's a large part of the credit markets in US. We have seen, I mean, what can happen to shale companies, what can happen to several economies which are dependent on oil, what can happen to several sovereign wealth fund if they start selling in financial assets. There are various angles to oil, and to me, oil and commodities stabilizing is also critical for financial markets to stabilize. And related aspect to that is, to me, for emerging markets to really start doing well, it's better that dollar, which has been strengthening against all currencies, that also stabilizes. I think too much of appreciation on US dollar and too much of depreciation in commodity prices, particularly oil, is not good for us also. So I hope to see those things, apart from what everybody has been talking about, is seeing flattening of the curve. Now it's very sad, it's disappointing. People like us, when we use these terms, flattening of curve, we talk about the shape of the bond yield curve. We never think about flattening of curve of people who are getting infected, people who are dying from this disease, but that's what everybody has been eyeing. So some of these things are critical for stabilization in the financial markets. I was talking about the India's response, the monetary response, the fiscal response. And as I mentioned earlier, I think still everybody has been quite hopeful that a lot more is likely to happen. Coming to the markets, so markets in the first few days, the way they corrected, I think this was we haven't seen something like this. There was a big fall in 1987 in one single day. There's big fall in 2008, big fall in early 90s, a variety of times, but the magnitude of fall across all global markets, the way it happened and the volatility it was like you have to go back to 1930s and those kind of days, because I mentioned earlier, markets were not prepared for it. Now going forward, and of course from the low levels where valuations became extremely attractive, we have seen a bit of a rally in the market. There have been some positive news flow. One is the global response from the policymakers. So much of money sloshing around, bond yields have come down, pushing equity prices higher. People are taking a view that maybe normalcy is likely to return. And in some time, some of the countries like Europe and US, at least we have seen, I mean, starting some signs of the flattening of the curve that I talked about. And at lower level that the buying has emerged. In the first few weeks, the amount of selling which was there, the redemptions which were there, I'm talking of global markets, in the emerging markets, almost like $70 billion between emerging bond funds and emerging countries equity fund. So obviously India also got hit very, very badly in the first few days, but at lower levels as the valuations became quite cheap, we have seen the buying returning. And also with tight margins and all that, now, I mean, the positions had got lightened, and maybe I think we have seen some bit of recovery in the market. Where do we go from here? So as I mentioned that there is going to be a P&L recession. What we need to do as a country, between like all of us put together, that it does not become a balance sheet recession. As I mentioned, large number of companies will have revenue losses. We have to ensure it does not damage the balance sheet in such a manner that it impacts the growth on a structural basis. The second point, bit of macro, but maybe I'll explain in just 1 or 2 minutes, and why I'm harping again and again on government action. There is something called a paradox of deleveraging. Paradox of deleveraging is, given this environment, every corporate would like to reduce its debt, would not like to take more debt to do a capex. Every individual would like to reduce the debt levels and would like to build savings, having seen what they have seen. But if there are 3 balance sheets that borrow money, government, corporate, and the individuals, if individuals and corporates are going to deleverage, then somebody has to leverage, and that's the government. There's something called a paradox of thrift. Today, the rational behavior of every individual, every corporate will be spend less amount of money, build some savings, defer our spending. But if everybody does that, that's not good for society. So it's rational for individuals, but not good for the society. So again, in that case, the only person who have the luxury today of spending is the government. And that's why I think government is spending in some manner with a high multiplier effect, and we can discuss a little later what could be those high multiplier effect spending, I think is very, very critical. Now, a lot of people will say, what happens to our debt to GDP ratio? What happens to our currency? What happens to the bond yields if government borrows a lot of money? Maybe in later part, we can discuss various ways to deal with it, because that's where, I mean, we have to ensure that growth doesn't fall to a level in the near term that it starts impacting the long-term potential of the growth. So that's where we are. But from an economist perspective, on the other side of this crisis, talking about the market, there are several structural opportunities that can open up for us. Even before this crisis, we have been writing for some time the opportunities on supply chain shift to India. I'm pretty sure you would have heard that from everybody. I wouldn't repeat that. I strongly believe that there are going to be a lot of geopolitical repercussion from this crisis. There is going to be a lot of animosity towards China. There is going to be a lot of realignment of global power, the global soft power and all. And hopefully, one, if we are able to contain this health crisis the way we have done so far, again, touch wood, I hope that we come out better from this. Second, if we continue to take the right step from a policy perspective, from businesses perspective, there's a possibility India comes out much stronger after this. There is going to be, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of fiscal response globally. What it means and the way people will react, a new normal is going to come. There's going to be a lot of spending on healthcare. Can we make this as our Y2K movement, the way we solved the problem of the Y2K on 31st December 99, and we created such a large IT industry. There's going to be a lot of spending on digital technology. Every organization, every government, every individual will virtualize their processes. E-education, e-healthcare, e-entertainment, e-governance, e-commerce. I mean, this is going to be a big reality. It's been a wave over the last 10 or 20 years, but this will take even a bigger jump from here on. Can, again, India take a big advantage of all of that? Already one of the big advantage for India is like the digitalization that we have done in last few years, which is really helping us in dealing with this crisis. Think about it. But for the GEM Trinity, Jan Dhan Yojana, Aadhaar, mobility, etc. and all, where the situation would have been in India. So I think there is still a big opportunity for India. The third, I believe there's going to be a lot of physical infrastructure spending in several countries. Can India take advantage of that? In last like few, and it's not that something we are talking like as a wishful thinking. In fact, there are already signs of it. We have seen in electronics, India's mobile phone imports have collapsed while our chip imports have gone up because there's a lot of manufacturing. Manufacturing may not be a very right word, at least the assembly is happening, and hopefully over a period of time as ecosystem gets developed, it may happen. We are seeing that in chemicals, how companies are getting large orders and some other companies are doing extremely well. We can see that maybe in several other industries, and I hope for that. Rural economy may come out hopefully relatively stronger from this. Simply because we had a good monsoon, the farm prices are higher, there's an opportunity in the rural areas from this. I hope that migrant labor doesn't take this disease to the rural areas, and so far there are all the signs that we are at least in the rural areas, we are in a better shape with more government spending, with positive wealth effect from gold over the last few years. Rural economy can do well, and a lot of businesses that can benefit from that. I can go on about, I mean, we can discuss more a little later. I'm sure there are going to be very interesting opportunities. I tell you the yesterday or maybe today morning's announcement of one of the largest company in the Silicon Valley announcing one of the largest investment in India in a technology and telecom platform. Think about it as this becomes the news across the world in global media. How other technology companies, how other digital companies, how other companies would be start thinking about it. 1.35 billion people, I mean, we are like next to China, we are the ones where a large, I mean, digital, I would say, experiments likely to happen. Similar to like what we have seen in fintech, maybe in health tech, and variety of other opportunities can come. So interesting days are ahead, provided we don't allow this P&L recession to become a balance sheet recession for corporate India and for us, for the economy as a whole. I'll go back to market, maybe I'll take a few more minutes and then we open up for questions. I thought I'll talk about why markets have gone up and what markets are thinking positive, and when there is so much of uncertainty on the ground globally as well as in India. The valuations when we fell became like cheaper than not only 2016, 2013, but even 2008. And in India, when you buy a stock, I mean, a large part of the value of every company comes from the earnings over a long period of time. The earnings of next 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 4 or 8 quarters, nobody really knows. And we are not spending too much of time on that also. But what we have to see is whether the business is resilient enough, whether the balance sheet is in good shape, whether the cash flows are enough for the company and management is taking the right decisions that they will ride out this crisis. And as the consolidation happens across businesses, some of the weaker players will find it difficult to survive, whether they will come out stronger. And then as the growth pathways like so long for next 20 years, 30 years in India, whether they'll come out stronger. If the market cap fall is much more than the earnings loss for next 2 or 3 years, I mean on a short-term basis is a much greater, then this is a moment to really look for those companies. The way we think about investing, we always mention that if you have discussed with any of our fund managers, we try to make it very simple, and it may sound like a cliche, but that's how we think about it. Great management, great business, reasonable valuation. Till a month or two back, it was like very difficult to get this trinity. Now with this correction, you are getting several great businesses, great management, also at a reasonable valuation. And that's giving us a good time to really look at the portfolio from a fresh perspective. As my head of equity mentioned, that I'm feeling anxiously excited. Just like each one of you, we are also feeling anxious about the environment in which we are. There's so much of uncertainty on this health crisis. There is uncertainty on the effectiveness of the stimulus. There is uncertainty on the near-term impact on the economy. There is uncertainty on the long-term implications on the economy, from the behavior of individuals, the behavior of corporates, the behavior of society, and what impact it can have on a lot of businesses. So we are anxious, just like each one of you, but we are feeling very excited also, because these are typically the times when you get bargains of a lifetime. And these are the times where markets make mistakes. I mean, I always believe in wisdom of the crowd, but I know there are times when there is a mania of the crowd, where people in the herd behavior makes mistake. They look at the hazy clouds, they look at the dark clouds, and completely make decisions which can be very, very irrational. So in those times, if you keep your sanity, I mean, those could be good times to really accumulate bargains. If you have a time on your side, if you think about 5, 7, 10 years, and the same thing applies to, I'm sure, each one of you. This is the time where, while we have to prepare for the worst, we may have to keep some bit of liquidity, we may have to hedge our position, whichever way we can, but feel excited that the long-term picture has not undergone a change. If history is any guide, I'm not talking about the last 10, 20 years, and maybe we can discuss later of our experience in 2008, 9, or maybe the earlier crisis. They may be different than the crisis we are going through. But even if you compare with 1930s, the worst recession humanity has seen, or let's say the world wars or any kind of crisis, great institutions take birth during those times. Great innovations happen during those times. And we always evolve as better citizens, as better human beings, as better organizations. And those are the people where one needs to bet. And that's something we have to keep in mind in our investments as well. Because in these times are where a wrong decision can impact the long-term financial health also. While we are worried about our own physical health, we have to ensure that the crisis today or the dark clouds doesn't impact our long-term interest as an investor. So keeping that patience, ensuring that we take advantage of the volatility rather than getting swayed by the volatility is very, very critical. There are going to be interesting opportunities also in the market. We can discuss that a little more in detail, but I would definitely argue for ensuring that in these periods, we ensure that because of these dark clouds, we don't lose sight of a shining sun, which will surely likely to emerge on the other side of this crisis. Thank you so much, and happy to take any questions.
So there are a lot of questions, but I would want to start with gold. There are too many people, a lot of people actually wanting and very anxious on what's happening on the gold side, because similar thing happened in 2008, and when the central bank started printing money, gold was the first asset class actually which started going up.
Yeah.
So what's your view on gold? And today there is a Bank of America Merrill Lynch report as well. So a lot of people were calling up right now and asking for gold.
So gold was going up even before this crisis. Over the last couple of quarters, there has been huge buying in the gold ETF globally. In fact, our view was in December, which of course the things changed dramatically in the next 2 months, was like a boom in overall commodities this year for a brief period, because generally the last towards the end of the bull market, you see a big rise in commodities also, because if you keep so much of cheap money in the system, it'll start chasing commodities also. And gold is like the first one, but we were expecting that to get a bull market in some of the other commodities also. But of course, there is a big crash simply because of the crisis, which was unexpected. On the gold, so ETF buying was there. Over the last several years, central banks have been a very, very big buyer of gold. Maybe they may turn sellers now because they would utilize the money somewhere else. But my sense is that the amount of money that has got printed, and at some point in time, maybe middle of this year, next of this year, where people get more optimistic about a bounce back in growth, and ultimately the global economy comes to a normalcy. In between, there's a possibility a period comes where people say that I don't know which currency to buy, I don't know where to put my money, and I don't have as much confidence on let's say the financial assets, and want to buy some real assets simply because real rates are going to be negative. Central banks will keep rates below the inflation rate, and when the real rates are negative, real assets do well, and gold is one of those real liquid assets that people want to buy. There's a possibility that gold does well in the near term. But keep one thing in mind, that in the long run, I mean, gold is like, it's there at some place, doesn't earn anything. Unlike a bond where you get a coupon, and unlike an equity where companies make profits and you get dividends and you get a capital gain, gold is completely based on what somebody else will pay a price for. It works on a bigger fool theory. But if central banks keep doing what they have been doing for last 1 or 2 months and growth doesn't come back, there's a possibility that gold does well. I would say how much allocation to put. So gold is like buying an insurance. When you're buying a car, when you pay 20-30 lakhs for a new car, and you pay 1 lakh rupee for an insurance, you don't want to get anything covered from that insurance company. You want it to write off. So put that money which you want to write off, that if something really goes completely haywire in the world, there is some asset which will go up on that day. But you should be happy if you lose money in gold, because in that case, rest of your portfolio would be doing better. So for that reason, maybe a small allocation to gold. By the way, we have a multi-asset allocation fund, and we have been running overweight on gold. So minimum, we always keep 10%. In fact, till last week, we were at 21%. We booked a little bit of profit, and we are again thinking about, what should be the ideal allocation.
Amit bhai?
I don't think so. Navneet would like to answer that, but the question is that will you invest in State Bank of India if you have given money?
So,
the question actually stems from the fact that whenever
State Bank of India mutual fund, I think that the person आपने थोड़ा overcome कर दिया. You should surely. SBI का full form is सबसे बढ़िया investments.
Yeah. So more to do with that, whenever there has been a crisis, it's LIC and SBI who have come to the government's rescue.
Yeah.
And ऐसा होता है कि घर में 2 बच्चे हैं, एक नालायक है और एक लायक है, तो लायक बेटे को ज्यादा डांट पड़ती है because नालायक को बोल के तो फायदा नहीं है. So, is that the case that if you after lockdown see company balance sheets not able to meet their debts, then will SBI or LIC or some kind of government or the government company step in and have to bail out?
So, I'll take that question as a larger question on the financial system as a whole rather than on one single entity. There are a couple of private sector banks who are also in a pretty good shape when you look at the overall capital ratios, you look at their liability side, you look at the granularity on their asset side, so on and so forth. If I compare this crisis with some of the earlier crises, there were parts of financial system where there were already fault lines. I mean, we have seen what has happened in NBFCs, HFCs, post-ILFS. We've seen with one private sector bank, how it got bailed out. So there were already some bit of fault lines there. And also the way things have been on the real estate and the real economy, which are also making people a little bit cautious on the overall financial system side. I'll tell you a few positives and negatives about the financial system in India, how people should look at the sector. One of the interesting aspect about India, and we have been talking about last few years, that the household debt to GDP has gone up, the retail leverage is going at a fast pace. One needs to be cautious on that front. Having said that, the overall private sector debt to GDP in India is not at an alarming level. I mean, look at mortgage to GDP, or if you look at the overall household debt to GDP or corporate debt to GDP and all, we are lower than a lot of other countries which are facing this crisis. In India, actually, unlike several of the other emerging markets, the government debt to GDP is higher. And I'm arguing even on that, government to spend more money and take more debt. We can deal with that later, not to digress here. So overall private sector debt to GDP is not very high. The capital ratios this time are in better shape, at least for the top rank financials. We have done a lot of cleaning in last 3 or 4 years, 5 years. The framework of IBC, etc., has been in place. With this CIBIL and Aadhaar and mobile number and all of that, I think the overall banks have better tools compared to, I think, in some of the previous cycles on the retail side, and same thing on the corporate side with the IBC, etc. So I think from that perspective, there is a reason to feel positive, and also a structural story about financialization of the economy, a structural story about formalization of the economy, and again, financial sector will be a big beneficiary. A structural story of digitalization of the economy and the way they can grow and keep the cost under control is very much intact. Long-term story has not changed. What has changed is that in the very near term, there is a lot of uncertainty. How much deep this P&L recession going to be and how much impact it can have on the financial sector. And that's why my view is that from the valuations that we had seen before the crisis, it will take quite some time for those valuations to come back. And you have to be very choosy, whatever you are looking at within the financials. I think other than the top rank names, there could be an opportunity in the parts of financials where there is a credit exposure is low. So maybe you want to play the market, maybe a capital market exposure entities, maybe the insurance companies, exchanges, depositories, that part of the financial along with the top rank names where you feel more comfortable about the capital ratios, ability to raise capital, and the liability side.
So is the focus actually shifting from PL to balance sheet, sir? In the recent term.
Yeah. So that's the biggest worry, and in fact, there was a call with someone in the ministry today, got arranged with the investors, and I was mentioning it that it should not become a balance sheet recession, because then it takes much longer time for us to solve that. The confidence gets shaken, and then for corporates to get back that confidence and go on investing again will take longer. We remain hopeful that RBI is doing a very good job in releasing macro liquidity. They have to ensure that at micro level also liquidity reaches. Whatever we have to do on the moratorium side, on the restructuring, etc., we do whatever it takes to ensure that it doesn't become a balance sheet recession.
Sir, on the two-wheeler side or on the four-wheeler side, people have a question that since now safety has become more of an issue, so people will avoid traveling in public transport. So there is a double whammy there, that whether you will buy more cars because you want to drive your own vehicle or more two-wheelers, or will the corporates have more transport of their own where they want to send private vehicles to pick up their staff to avoid public transportation?
Yeah.
What happens to auto in this sector? And same question goes for real estate, that whether companies will allow more people to work from home and hence the commercial real estate gets affected. It's on auto and real estate.
No, so they are great questions. So on auto, you are absolutely right. There's a possibility that for quite some time, people don't feel very comfortable being in a crowded place. So depending on your ability and your needs, maybe more four-wheelers, more two-wheelers, etc. get sold. Think about like Europe and all, where people use so much of public transport, how well they will feel comfortable because there are like no borders and the Europe tunnel and all of that. So whether people will buy more cars, and the same thing is here. I talked about the rural economy. I think that there also, I think there could be a positive repercussion if it comes out well and the migrant labor doesn't take the disease to the rural areas, and if we are able to solve that that problem easily, then probably the demand comes back. That's where again, when I was saying some of the non-fiscal measures, can government along with the judiciary help them in terms of whether it's the BS6 and some of those reliefs. I think that will also be critical from the government policy perspective. When I said non-fiscal measures, and maybe each question I'll tell you about how to think creatively and all. Whether the governments can take a lot many more cars and buses and everything on lease. You don't have money to spend so much today. But even if you take on lease, somebody is buying that car or somebody is buying that bus. And the government and the government employees can do that. Same thing on the, you mentioned about which other sector?
Real estate on the commercial side.
So, sometimes we just kind of extrapolate things. And I tell you an interesting analogy exactly like this, that in 90s when internet came, and I remember, without taking names of some of the most respected analysts in the world, who wrote an obituary of the airline industry, that with Cisco and with video conferencing, with emails, with fax and paging and all of that, the commercial travel will come down, and those are the people who pay so much of money to the business class and first class and all of that. But what happened actually, the travel increased substantially. Even when, you remember when the VCR and CDs and all came, what was the valuation of some of the movie theaters? I mean, I remember PVR, I think, fell to some few hundred crores. And I think in those days, we bought 10% of the company. Because people said, log to jayenge nahi, movie dekhne kyun jayenge? 500 rupees, whatever that money, and people will watch it. Actually, after the YouTube, then more people are going for concerts. The more people are going for, the comedians never had as good a time as they are having today. Because people go and watch, despite the fact that every comedian's video is available. So sometimes we extrapolate. Of course, there are going to be new normal. Companies will think differently. And I think that maybe companies will say that I have people in 10 suburbs of Pune. Should I have 10 smaller offices or should I have one single office? Because one person gets impacted and whole office is closed. I'll rather work. You cannot have like everybody working from home. Of course, there will be work from home will become a big thing going forward. But still, you'll think differently about commercial real estate. So you don't know actually, the co-working space takes a big hit, but maybe some other kind of smaller offices, etc., do well, and then commercial real estate will evolve itself in a different manner. Think about residential real estate. And I think that maybe as more and more people start working from home, at least full-time or part-time, and the gig works start, the new residential projects will think very differently about. So today, when you go and you see a swimming pool and a party area and a gym and all, you'll ask for a Starbucks or a cafeteria. You'll ask for a business center in every residential complex. Maybe the residential centers will come in a very, very different manner to take care of the part of people who are there in the building. So I think the residential real estate, commercial real estate, autos, everything is going to evolve in a different manner over a period of time. There's going to be a new normal.
Before moving to the next question, Pallav, Navneet sir, actually there is a video of Amitabh Bachchan and Jaya Bachchan, a documentary interview given to a BBC reporter, where he had actually said that you should stop video cassettes because ये buses में cassette देखेंगे तो हमारी picture देखने theater में कौन जाएगा? That's a documented interview of Bachchan. Pallav, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Dhruv sir, you have a question.
Kitchen appliances. You think about it now that more men are working in kitchen. And suddenly, you'll feel a lot more need. India mein dishwashers hai nahi, India mein vacuum cleaners hai nahi, because buy is like so easily available. Now people will start thinking, boss, I need a vacuum cleaner, I need a dishwasher, I need like several other time saving and energy saving, things at home which you have never thought about.
Yeah. Good, sir.
Navneet, you mentioned, RBI has taken, I think, much more action in India compared to the government's fiscal this thing. It has already had an impact somewhat on the interest rates and cooled off some of the movements that we saw in March end. So going forward today, what is happening, I think a lot of clients in terms of fresh allocation, either people are looking, worried about the equity allocations and have moved, the equity portions into some portion into debt, or whatever incremental money, as you said, people want to retain extra liquidity. And the default option has always been the overnight funds or the liquid funds. But what we now find is that like overnight is, 2.5%. So in this scenario where money which is kept completely on one hand, you can be very safe and keep it in the overnight and you would earn say 2.5%, 3%. But in the light of what steps RBI is taking and the likely sort of, something on the interest rate outlook, and coming to the question is where should a fixed income, investor be looking to invest his money in terms of the mutual fund, sort of options that we have?
Dhruv, we have seen so many cycles. We have never seen the yield curve as steep as it is today. So you have overnight, which falls to like 0% towards the end of the day. You have like overnight at like 2-3% in CBLO and all of that. A 1-year treasury bill at 3.5%, and you see like a 10-year GSEC annualized at 6.5%, and then you look at state loans, and then you look at AAA, and then you look at beyond that. What a steep curve. We have never seen something like this ever, maybe for a brief period after the 2009 crisis. But if history is any guide, generally, by the way, theoretically, a very steep curve is an indicator of growth coming back soon. And hopefully, I hope that the bond markets are right, and then they are seeing the growth coming back. It's also a reason for, one of the reasons is the risk aversion, as you said, that clients are saying, yaar, paisa safe rakhna hai, mereko return nahi chahiye. Return on capital is more important than, the return of capital is more important than return on capital. But at some point in time, people will get tired. The same thing RBI is trying with the bankers. That आप कितने दिन मेरे को आप 5-6 लाख करोड़ रुपया 3.75 पे दोगे. एक दिन RBI आके बोलेगी मैं रिवर्स रिपो में 1 लाख करोड़ से ज्यादा नहीं लूंगा. And 4 लाख करोड़ रुपया जब आपको रोज हिट करने लगेगा 0% पे. On the other side, you see that यार Birla Group and Tata Group are borrowing at 7, 8, and 9%, and the spread is so humongous. आप एक दिन जाके बोलोगे कि यार देखना कोई NBFC borrow कर रही है क्या? Because I want to earn that spread, and that's how you will see the rally happening. In last few days, by the way, post RBI second announcement, we have already seen a very significant fall at the front end of the curve. The CP yields, T-bill yields, and all have fallen very, very sharply. For the top PSU names, yields have fallen very sharply. So when you are seeing the return today in overnight mein to nahi, in the liquid fund and all, there's a lot of that capital gain. But current yield is now 4.5%, और वो और नीचे आ जाएगा थोड़े दिन में. जब आपको 4% आएगा और उसके ऊपर टैक्स लगा के आप देखोगे दूसरे साइड पे आपको लग रहा है यार इतना डिफरेंस है, then I think people will start coming. By that time, a lot of capital gains would have gone, and you don't want to miss out on those capital gains. So I would argue for at least taking some risk in the portfolio. There is surely a lot of uncertainty. I'm not saying you must go and put money in the most risky credit risk fund today, but at least maybe in a short-term fund, in a corporate bond fund, in a banking and PSU fund, some of these funds where you feel comfortable about the portfolio manager and feel comfortable that both RBI, government, everybody, SEBI will work together and will ensure that we don't create another big crisis, then there is a reason to take some risk in the portfolio, but of course in a controlled, calibrated manner.
And do you see the scenario like in 2008-9, the interest rates really moved, I think they were much lower than what we've still touched. Do you see that sort of a scenario that rates, I remember in 2008-9, the GSEC went below 5%.
Below 5, 4.84 for one intraday, yeah. And 2003-4 also, Dhruv, you remember, you used to do so much of income fund that time. Yeah. We were at 5% for an extended period. We were hovering around 5% for a long time. And today the crisis is much bigger. And we are at like 6 quarter and annualize karoge to aap almost like 6 half pe. So we are 125 basis point higher than where we were in 2008-9, where we were in 2003-4. And this time the crisis is bigger. That's why I mentioned maybe there is like fear of the government borrowing. But I think RBI will have to ultimately take a large part of the borrowing on its own balance sheet, because the investors would be kind of will not be taking that much of risks.
Okay, thanks, Navneet.
Thank you.
Janak bhai, you had a question.
So you mentioned, Navneet, that there are various things that the government can do, and you would probably delve on some of them as we progress. So I was wondering if you could, talk about one or two pointers which you think or which actions government takes and which would help the economy to revive a little fast.
So I think in the conversation somewhere or the other, we would have touched a lot of that. I mentioned about like, how do we use FX reserves? Maybe can we build crude oil reserves? Can we do some kind of a crude ETF in India where domestic investors put money and maybe we buy the crude oil and secure our crude oil supply for the long run? Can we do some monetization of gold? There is so much of temple gold and all that we have bought for hundreds of years. Today is the time to use that money more productively. Can we do something for the auto industry in terms of other reliefs? If money is not there in terms of other relief on BS6, etc. Maybe, as I mentioned, government takes a lot of things on lease. I mean, if you don't want to spend full money, government takes more offices, more flats, more cars, everything on lease that you pay over the years, but at least you create the demand. Can state governments give a lot of land to people who want to build a large healthcare facility? I mean, I'm just thinking aloud. Can they give large amount of land to build? I mean, it's difficult to do that and you have to find ways of doing it, but this is the time to look at that. Do the community housing. I mean, one of the problems that we have to solve is that who are the people vulnerable to this disease? These are the people old and who are very frail, right? Today. I mean, if you are able to take care of them, then the rest of the population will take care of itself. I mean, below 40 तो बहुत ही कम risk है इसमें, but हम लोग फिर भी घर पे बैठे हैं. How do we, over a period of time also, I think we have to think a lot about our older people. We always think we are a young country, but large number of oldest people will also be the highest in the world, much more than what they are in Japan today, where they are struggling. We have to think about like, how do we create large communities for taking care of the older people, and now you have a generation where there are just one or two kids and they may be living somewhere else. Can we give like large tract of land to do some community housing or some of, or let's say an affordable housing and all of that on a bidding basis where government doesn't take anything and maybe on long-term lease, etc. Can we do something for, I mentioned about the NREGA, that I think substantial increase in the allocation, but for infrastructure projects. You create like, you identify certain projects, maybe a Mumbai, Delhi freight corridor or maybe a industrial corridor and all. So you give money to create jobs, give the money which supports the consumption at the bottom of the pyramid, but you also buy a steel and cement and you create a new asset which will be helpful in the long run, create the dams and the other things. So there are ways and ways to do about a lot of those aspects. And you think about individual industry. We're talking about real estate. A lot of projects are completely now out of money, and maybe banks may have to, or NBFC, HFC may have to take over those projects. Even despite the restructuring, nothing can be done. Maybe in those projects, government can take a call, yaar, kuch extra FSI de karke, can we do something? So we have to think innovatively and creatively about a lot of those issues.
Rupa ma'am, you had a question.
Hi Navneet, thank you. You gave a very positive kind of a thing, and your smile speaks a lot more than anything, and these days, there's so much of gloom and doom, saying that when I see a smiling person, because I've never been in the house for so long, I'm like caged, and when I see human beings, now I feel very happy. Just wanted to check with you. I think there is a feeling saying that it's end of the world to a lot of section of people, saying that, as Drew said, people want to move out of equities into liquid and safer assets. Even in debt, we're very cautious in entering. People feel it's end of the world and people don't see anything. How does this change? Because you've been all of us have seen over the period saying that, but every time the situation is different. How do you see going forward from here? Second, I also would like to ask you, most of the clients do feel saying that with the markets, of course, the market will be volatile for the next 6 months. What's your view on that? And also, there are few of them who want to invest in the markets for the next few years, and how should they go by, or how do they allocate funds?
So no doubt that this is one of the biggest crises that we have seen, but we have seen many crises before. May not be exactly similar, but at that point in time, that looks like very big. So I mean, as I've seen that over the last 35 years of my investing as a small kid in the 80s, and I've seen a prime minister getting dead. I mean, in her own house, and market was closed. Just like few weeks back, people were saying that stock market should be closed. I mean, why are we allowing investor wealth to get destroyed, decimated like this? Market band kar do. And I remember as a small kid, my first memory of stock market after 31st October 1984, ki yaar market band kar do thode din ke liye. We cannot take these losses because we were like end of India. And 85 was the first bull market I've seen because you had a new PM with like 400 plus seats, I mean the highest majority. And after that, again, we have seen like, and today people have forgotten, I mean the problem in Punjab, the problem in Assam, in Northeast, in Kashmir, the Mandal Commission, we pledged our gold in like 91, there was a prime minister for 4 months, and when we were pledging our gold, we were like completely on the verge of bankruptcy as a country. And from where to where, 950 Sensex to like 4,000 Sensex in 1.5 years. I mean, several of you would remember in 91, 92. And I can give you like several of those instances over the next 15, 20 years in my like investing career, how like at every crisis, it feels like end of world and a big problem, and then how it comes out, and then the next bull market is always bigger than the previous bull market. I'm sure there'll be a lot of innovations. I'm sure there will be a lot of new things. I'm sure a lot of businesses will not be able to cope up with the challenges. A lot of businesses will have to get consolidated, or there's going to be a creative destruction, just like every cycle, every crisis has. This time won't be any different. Not that everybody will get saved and everybody will get, we will remain in the same form. But newer things will come, and this is the classic creative destruction which we are going to see. But there are going to be much, much bigger opportunity on the other side of this crisis. And it's important that as an investor, we keep that faith. Investors have few very, very big biases. I'll take 2 more minutes. I mean, you have a recency bias. Our thinking about investment gets a lot driven by the recent past, and we try to extrapolate that. And we get clouded by what has happened recently or what's happening currently, and then we lose sight of like what can happen over a period of time, which is something that we have to be very, very careful about, because we think in a linear fashion and we just kind of extrapolate that. So like Dhruv was saying earlier, or you are saying earlier, we just want to like preserve that cash, and you don't see that over the next 10 or 20 years from a $2,000 per capita GDP, are we going to go to $3 or $4 or $6,000 or not? The countries which have gone from 2000 to 10 and 20 have seen much bigger crisis than this. So Japan and Germany, I mean, or Korea, I mean, after the war, they were completely decimated, and how they had the best period of growth after that. I hope it won't be any different this time. The crisis is very deep and very big. Something like this we have not seen. There is a lot of uncertainty. I'll be the last person to say कि boss सब कुछ खत्म हो गया, बस the last day आज का आज पूरा पैसा लगा दो. Surely you have to be safe and secure. I'm sure you are guiding everybody very well. Clients are in good hands. In fact, just digressing a bit for half a minute, the importance of advice is only like come in these moments. Managing money is not about what you know. Managing money is all about like how you behave, and that's where you guys, all of you, like I mean, all of you guys are a great friend, and you do a great job, have done over the cycles. So how we behave, and this is the time where you don't lose sight of that bigger picture over the next several years. I mean, think about it. One of the largest company in the world, are they not seeing the crisis? Who have put that, whatever that 45,000 crores of investment, but maybe they are taking a different view of the world than a lot of people who are very fearful today, because they know that the world is not going to come to an end. 7 billion people are going to fight this together. It's going to be very interesting innovations. I give you a small example. The London that you see today really got built after the plague, because that's where they realized the importance of sanitation and variety of things which came. The Bombay that you see today really happened after the big crisis, a similar crisis probably 100 years back. That's where the Suez system and all of that came. I mean, I've mentioned in some of my other webinars, the calculus got invented when Isaac Newton was at home, because Oxford or Cambridge, I think Oxford was closed because of the health crisis in London. So these innovations will give birth to several interesting new business, new models, new processes, and all. You need to keep that faith.
Paresh bhai, you have a question.
Sir, what sectors do you feel can lead the market rally from here on?
So I think we may have touched upon several of them over a period of time. I think while there is a big problem in the financial sector that one can see because of, as I mentioned, the fears of balance sheet recession or even a P&L recession, maybe a higher delinquencies both in retail and wholesale, but the structural opportunity hasn't undergone a change in terms of financial penetration. It's so low in India, so you have to be selective there. But I'm sure, I mean, if the rural economy does well, there could be interesting opportunities there. We have talked about healthcare spending globally. We have talked about digital spending globally. We have talked about physical infrastructure spending globally, and there could be winners in India. We have talked about the supply chain shifting to India. There could be opportunity there. We have talked about the NREG and other things. Think about it. First time the plight of urban poor has come to the fore, because in India, whenever we think about poverty, we think about rural India. We never think about the urban India, the poverty and what it can do to urban India. The biggest problems which are there today in Dharavi and in the Kolivada and some of those places, I mean, 8-10 lakh people in the conditions, in the financial vulnerability they have and the health conditions they have. Think about it, how there's going to be different kind of investments there, and also the social security which will happen for those people on a structural basis, and what it can do to the discretionary consumption at the bottom of the pyramid. People will maybe defer a lot of the other discretionary spending, but something like that at the lower end of the pyramid, I think can come back sooner than later. There could be, I think, also that markets are smart. So the businesses which are very easy to identify, which will be in big trouble in the next 6 months and 1 year, that's where the stocks have corrected immensely. The businesses where they are likely to do well in the next 6 months or 1 year, those stocks are doing well. If you look at the Nifty today or BSE 100 or BSE 500, whatever, there are stocks which are at 12,000 Nifty. There are stocks which are at 8,000 Nifty, and there are stocks which are at 4,800 Nifty. I mean, there are stocks which are at 10-year lowest point. I think what we have to see is the resilience of that business. And what you have to see is whether the management going to come out stronger from this crisis and whether they are going to take advantage of the opportunity. So I'll be a lot more bottom up. And you know how people are, so I'm anxious about all the problems, but how excited we are feeling. We have opened up our small cap fund for the subscription, which has been closed for 4 years. What are we seeing differently? That in this market, we'll be able to identify 10, 15 of those managements where size may not be there, but they have stability, they have agility, they have the nimbleness, they have the right people to really come out stronger from this and then build a new, probably, business.
So one question which we keep hearing from clients is FIs have been selling continuously past maybe more than 15, 18 months now, and DIs have been buying. So what happens if there is a redemption and DIs also start to sell? How will the markets handle that pressure?
So I think, I mean, the flows in March were like pretty decent. People knew about this crisis. As we speak, even in April, that has been good. I think it's the combined effort of our industry, much more effort of people like you over the last several years to send the right message about the long-term orientation and asset allocation, remaining disciplined. If you are 50-50, today the equity allocation has come down. So gradually, I think, again, rebuild the equity exposure and all of that. So people are behaving in a lot more mature manner. Then we also have in India, the pension fund who started investing just like 3, 4, 5 years back, that they have been continuing their investments. So I think that the domestic investors so far have been behaving in a very mature manner, and I hope that that continues. From the foreign perspective, at some point in time, maybe I think if India takes right steps and we don't make a big blunder on any side, there's a possibility that at some point in time, people realize that emerging markets as a whole have a bigger opportunity and they have dealt with the health crisis in a better manner, countries like India, and maybe some bit of allocation starts and we start getting money from FIIs back. But there is going to be a lot of volatility over the next few months. And all we have to ensure is we don't get swayed by it, but we try to take advantage of that.
So one last question from my side. We've been seeing a lot of challenges on the employment side since this government has come into power. After this lockdown opens, you'll see more layoffs and salary cuts, and so is that not a dichotomy that how will the consumption go up when there are pay cuts and pink slips all around?
So that's the reason you are seeing, I mean, so much of fear about the financials, right? That the retail debt to GDP has gone up in last 4 or 5 years. There are going to be some headcount cut. There are going to be some salary cut or salary freeze, etc. And people would have taken leverage, expecting a continuous income growth, and that income growth may not be there. There has been some hit on their wealth also. There are two ways to look at it. Maybe that as the labor cost comes down and as the land cost comes down, as various factors of cost of production comes down, the thing that we are talking about, a lot of supply chain shifting to India, actually it accentuates that process. So compared to, let's say, Bangladesh and Vietnam and some of our peers where people have been saying that India is competitive, you look at the infrastructure cost and interest cost and labor cost adjusted for the productivity, etc. In these moments, what happens that productivity actually goes up because every company looks at like with a very minute, with a like binoculars where there is a cost and I need to cut that. And people also change their behavior. People reskill themselves. People, I mean, there are obviously in every of these crises, there are going to be winners, there are going to be losers. Same thing in the labor also, whether it's a blue collar or a white collar. There would be people who will reskill themselves, who will get prepared for a different kind of future. There are those kind of jobs will get created. Those kind of jobs would be in demand. There are few people who will get impacted negatively. But I've seen in every crisis, ultimately it turns out to be positive for the society as a whole. So I remember a similar conversation, slightly digressing on jobs and how it can impact. In 90s, you would remember all PSUs and banks etc. used to have a lot of strike. कि computer आएगा तो job चला जाएगा हमारा, and don't allow computerization. But think about it, after the computers, whether the jobs have increased or decreased in financial service. Jobs have gone up like maybe 20, 50x before the computers and after the computers. So the more AI, more ML and all, maybe somewhere else jobs will get created. As people have more free time with more technology, they go and watch more comedy shows. They go and watch more concerts and see the people-to-people kind of thing is actually going to increase a lot more, but in a different manner.
Sir, one simple question. Do you see more correction from here?
So nobody really knows. I think at least in the next few months, it will be so volatile and markets never are at a fair value. I can make a case, market was like below fair value. अगर आप bond yield और earnings yield को simple compare करो, क्या 6% पे आपको 10 year जीसने के 6.25% पे, अगर आप 13, 14, 15 के PE पे हो तो आपको 6-6.5% earnings yield है. इंडिया की हिस्ट्री देखोगे, कभी भी अगर earnings yield bond yield से कम हुआ है, वहां से next 3 year, 5 year returns have been very good. This time could be different. It takes a little longer. But this time cannot be different, then returns will be perennially lower because ultimately India is a growth economy. Matlab, meri Excel sheet mein, when I look at a company with the team, bulk of the market value, market cap comes from 2023 and beyond. Earnings of next 2 or 3 years is a very small part of the overall market capitalization. So ultimately, if earnings yield are lower than the bond yield, does it mean कि 15 PE के नीचे नहीं जा सकता? Market जा सकता है. मतलब briefly in 2008 for few months we were substantially below that. There is a possibility on a day कभी suddenly कोई बड़ा increase हो गया number इंडिया में या कहीं और, तो possibility the market suddenly नीचे आ गया. That day you have to be prepared for deploying the remaining amount of money rather than getting worried कि यार जैसे ही 10% increase आएगा मेरे को तो allocation कम करना है. Equity is very risky. And sorry, I'll take one more minute for that because I remember in 2008-9 because industry was not as mature. The kind of hard work that another last 10 years has got put in our markets has changed it. But I remember the investor behavior. A lot of money came in 2006, 7 and 8 till the middle of 2008. When the crash happened by October 2008, in next 6 months, we lost a very large amount of SIPs. Those are the investors who never recovered their money. But जिसने 21,000 पे लगाया था, जिसने 8,000 पे अपना average कर लिया, those investors not only recovered their money in next 1 year, but they made very good money over the next few years. And it's important that that discipline of asset allocation is not lost. But market नीचे जा सकता है क्या? पक्का जा सकता है. मतलब पक्का मतलब मेरी बोलो जाएगा ही. But I'm saying there's a possibility जा सकता है. हो सकता है bottom हो गया. आपको अगर like आज I read about some vaccine experiment starting in Germany. I read about vaccine experiment starting in UK. Chancellor announced possibility like suddenly you get a lot of, a series of positive news flow on vaccine plus like chloroquine plus azithromycin is working fine and suddenly like US announces ki boss mere hospital beds are now 10% empty in New York, and you don't get a chance to buy lower than these levels, but it can work out other way also. So I'll keep my fingers crossed. Next few weeks, I think it is going to be volatile. Be prepared for it.
I'll ask the same question that Amit bhai asked in a different way, sir. आपके पास 100 रुपए, आज आप कितना रुपए डालें? That is a question from
I'm largely invested यार. मतलब मैं इतना ज़्यादा वो market timing नहीं करता हूँ, थोड़ा बहुत करता हूँ कभी कभार. मैंने I pulled out of our small cap, like I remember early 2018 and all that, but over the last whatever few weeks, months, I've been like putting incremental money into the market. Maybe I think हो सकता है 10% नीचे मिले, 15%, 20% नीचे मिले, but I think trying to time to that last day is easier said than done. Yeah. 2 weeks back when we saw that 7,500 and all, I think some of us had that call and I was like, they will relatively a lot more aggressive. After that, markets have gone up. It's not as cheap as it was 2 months back, but markets move like pendulum. Yeah. They will do excesses on both sides. Maybe we have seen one side of excess, but जब upside आएगा तब you will see the other side of excess also. That time, people will start extrapolating that India will continue to grow at 12%. I'm telling you, I can visualize this. And I can tell you about 2007. I mean, I don't want to take names here. All of my good friends in the sell side, all the best of the global firms invited their chief global economists, chief global strategists, and one after another at a grand event in 2007. I still have those memories in my mind, and there was no space in Oberoi and Taj those days to show that how India can grow at 10% for next 20 years. India is the next like place to put money, and the rest is history. Now everybody is projecting. I mean, अभी तो हम लोग 5-6% पे थे, फिर 3 पे आ गए, अभी 0 पे. I'm sure in next few weeks people will say that India will grow at 0, -2, -3. Then कुछ लोग बोलेंगे 2022 में भी recession है, कुछ लोग फिर बाद में बोलेंगे 3 साल तक 3% growth नहीं आएगी. But I can visualize in few years time, I hope in few quarters time, people will say, boss, India is the next China. The way we dealt with this health crisis, and India will emerge as a soft power. I'll just take 1 minute, think about it, and I hope that we don't make a blunder as a society. Indian way of greeting will become the global way of greeting. Namaste. Indian way of eating, because people are already talking about the wet market and some of those animal markets where this crisis got generated. Indian way of building immunity, Ayurveda, and the natural and all the whatever our yoga and all of that, and Indian way of like dealing with some of these things. Yeah, mindfulness. Suddenly, I mean, if we get our act together as a country and government does what it needs to be doing, I mean, I'm repeating it for 10 times now, and corporates do what we are supposed to do. You don't know. I mean, it can turn out to be our century.
Sir, do we look at the pharma sector to be a long-term story, sustainable story going forward?
So, yeah, almost a month back, even I think around when the early days of this crisis, I discussed about it that healthcare is going to be at the focus area for the policymakers globally. Like हमारे budget की speech में maybe 2-3 minute की बात होती है healthcare पे, like ये 2 जगह पर हम AIIMS खोलेंगे नए, कहीं झारखंड में, कहीं विजयवाड़ा, पता नहीं कहीं पे, और maybe 2-4 minute इधर उधर. I can visualize that next budget will have 20 minutes on healthcare. What we are going to do healthcare, on Ayushman Bharat, on variety of things. And the same is globally. A lot of innovation will help, will happen on healthcare. Even individually, I mean, health will become the #1 issue for each one of us. Sanitization and some of those things, physical safety will become. So it's going to be a big sector. But again, remember one thing, and I want to make this very clear to everybody. So we have been running like overweight in several of our funds, and we have benefited from it. In every bull market and every sector that does well, the mistakes that happen is in 2000 you just had to change the name of the company from whatever it to technologies. आप Sapient Technologies कर रहे थे तो stock 10 गुना हो जाता. 2007-8 you have to put infra or a real estate after it, and the stock will go up. The same thing will happen with some of the big themes that I've talked about. People will just change the name of the company, stock will go up 5x. We have to be very careful, because in these innovations, large number of IT, out of 1,000 IT companies, only 50 survived, and 10 did extraordinarily well, 20 did reasonably well. Other 1,000 companies did not come back. The same thing will happen again, and you have to be very careful about which is the company you are betting on. That's why the better way is to put money in a fund rather than trying to do it on your own.
In one of your talks recently, you talked about India becoming a hub for manufacturing of medical equipments. So can that be, look, right now most of the medical equipment manufacturing happens in the US. So can it shift to India with so much of focus on it? And you said that you're overweight pharma in your funds, but
some of the funds, yeah.
Some of the funds. But are we looking at pharma as a sector getting increased weightage in the index going forward?
So index में 5.5-6% होता था 5 साल पहले. I remember, like in 2013 or so, which were the heydays of pharma. And I remember our pharma fund at one point in time was the best performing equity fund in India for a 10-year, for a few days or few weeks. I mean, it was like that. And then of course you had a decline, and the peak weight was like 6% or something, which came down to like 2.5% or something. Maybe it goes up. But rather than pharma, I would say healthcare as a sector, because you don't know where the innovation will happen. And various ways to play it, not only through the pharma companies. In fact, some of the pharma companies may not be a full beneficiary because so much of innovation will happen. There could be like newer ways of dealing with this crisis. So a lot of innovation will happen on health tech and on diagnosis, on variety of things. So you have to be very careful about like just, I mean, buying only the small part of the overall healthcare sector. But on medical equipment, so there is opportunity everywhere of supply chain, but we have to keep 2 or 3 things in mind. We shouldn't get too over exuberant on that also, because think about one thing. After this crisis, every country would not like to be over dependent on any country. It's not that कि किसी की China या Korea में एक supply chain है उसको पूरा वो India में खड़ा कर देंगे, नहीं करेंगे. They would like, particularly on health and all, Italy will say about there are few things which I want to produce very near in my country also. So maybe I think people will diversify a lot more. We have to compete against every country in the world. It's not our birthright. Wages will go down in US also because there is a massive unemployment there. People may be willing to work at a much lower salary and they are maybe relatively more skilled. So it's not our birthright that every country will come here. What works in our favor is that we will have the biggest supply of labor pool to the world for a very, very long time. Our population is not aging anytime in the next 30, 40 years. We have a large supply of skilled English-speaking people also. What works in our favor is we also have a very large domestic market. Kuch problem ho gayi globally, then you also have a large domestic market to take care. What works in our favor is in last few years, government has taken a lot of structural reforms. What doesn't work in our favor is that we have to build our infrastructure to that scale, which some of the other countries have got. We have to get our cost of capital down. We have to really work very hard on innovation and R&D.
There is a question, sir, on PSU. So, do you think PSUs will take the lead over the next couple of years, taking it over from the private sector?
Couple of years, I'm not sure. There could be a pure tactical trade. When I say tactical trade, meaning that one is that these PSUs were not in healthcare or not in consumer staples and the technology and all that sectors which have done well. They were in sectors though where the sectors have not done well, and particularly they are all linked with the investment cycle, industrial cycle, which has been like in a complete doldrum for last few years. So they have paid a big price. Also like PSU banks, because of the NPAs and not investing enough in technology, etc., have paid a big price. In the near term, where people will be too worried about several private sector balance sheet, these balance sheets have the sovereign support. So from a relative perspective, dividend yields have gone up. Some of these businesses, which will the first one to go and invest money. So from a growth perspective, and relative valuations have become really, really very cheap. At this point in time, market was getting little excited till 2 or 3 months back. A strategic divestment hoga, so value will get unlocked. Abhi suddenly now people are not as hopeful. But if things improve in few months' time, I'm sure a strategic divestment is the only way to go out. There is a possibility that at least in some of those companies where a strategic divestment happens, maybe they get it re-rated. So purely from a tactical perspective, there is a trade there.
Dhruv, sir.
So it has really been a interesting session. I think Navneet, you always come with a different perspective, and I think always reaffirms the belief of the possibilities and the potential of India as a country, India as an investment destination. It reaffirms the belief, for I think all our clients who have heard this call and for us who have been on the call, that the possibilities of India, and if one, as you mentioned, if we remove the recency bias, which generally tends to impact investors most, and if we are able to take a little longer term view of the economy and the markets, I think we can make more rational decisions. And I think that's our attempt at Sapient, to try and bring a little long term perspective while advising our clients. So I would like to thank you very much for your insights, and I would like to thank all the clients who have participated in this session, and I hope it was worth their while.
Well, thank you so much, and I think all your clients are in good hands with with the advisors that they have at Sapient, and it's very critical actually, particularly in these times. The importance of advice becomes like, I mean, it's very, very important. It's very pronounced and prominent, simply because, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm repeating that line, managing money is less about what you know, it's more about how you behave. And I think that that behavioral aspect, and all of you having seen long cycles and doing the right kind of advice is very, very critical. And I'm sure dark clouds will be over soon, and we'll have a real shining sun at very, very soon. So I wish you all a very good health, and stay safe, and then prepare. So while we have to prepare for the worst in these times, but keep hoping for the best and then remain a realist. I think at our end, while as a portfolio manager, we always try to prepare for the worst, but we remain realist and then always hope for the best. Thank you. Real
So,
pleasure.
Sir, we enjoy a special relationship with you, and thank you for this call. But
Thank
then
you.
you can take that relationship further along with your family on 26th of April, where Prasoon is going to talk about relationships. And
Sure.
it's a very interesting session. We will dole out the invite to you as well. But hopefully you can join up with your family and
No,
enjoy this
absolutely.
session. Nothing to do with markets and no questions to you that day.
They really look forward to that, and I'm sure that's going to be a lot more interesting.
All right.
You.
Thank you
Okay,
so
sir.
much. Thank you so much, everybody, for
Thank you.
joining in, and looking forward to having you all on the 26th. Please log in 10-15 minutes in advance. We have 3,000 slots for the evening. Looking forward to having you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.